Morning, all. We're going to discuss why there's still some big name free agents out there. But first up, Dell signs a 1 year, $800,000 contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm kind of surprised that the Leafs signed Dell only because I thought Dell kind of outplayed Jones at points last year. And so I thought that he would probably get a shot at a backup job somewhere unless they're going to have him and Campbell fight it out and then trade whoever doesn't make it. But it's possible that Dell is going to end up in the AHL this year. It's possible. Good on the Leafs for finding themselves another goaltender. You can't have enough goaltending depth. No, they didn't sign him so they could trade Freddie Anderson. That would be crazy. One thing that apparently the St. Louis Blues are thinking about, and this is just from Elliot Friedman, they're thinking about is that they kind of feel like Vegas tampered. And so tampering is that whole, if let's say I'm the general manager of, let's say the Canucks, and I start musing about picking up a player who's currently on another team, I'm not allowed to do that. And so I can get penalized by the National Hockey League for doing that. Not that there's a Canucks GM that's done that. There is. But the idea is this. Now, either they believe that Vegas reached out to Pietrangelo before they were allowed, or they telegraphed to him, hey, we're making room for you, and it was known that they were moving guys around and trying to move out salary to bring in a big name. We all knew that they were targeting Pietrangelo. So St. Louis might be going to the NHL and saying, hey, this seems a little bit fishy that they're doing this. So they didn't technically call the player, but they made it pretty clear they were all in on that player. So again, we'll see if anything happens with it. I would think at most you would see a draft pick forfeited by Vegas, but there really isn't a whole lot else that they can do. So yeah, we'll see if anything comes out of that. I have my doubts. But I want to talk about cap space because according to Cap Friendly, there just isn't any. So we're seeing guys like Hoffman being out there, for instance. And why isn't anybody signing Hoffman? And then the whole, why didn't the Canucks just sign Toffoli? I don't understand why the Canucks just didn't sign Tanev. They only have $1.9 million in cap space right now, and that's with the addition of Nate Schmidt. They did not have the money to bring those players back. If the Canucks had signed those players, right now we would be dealing with Canuck fans losing their minds because the team is over the cap. This is why Tyler Toffoli the other day when he was asked, well, did you talk to the Canucks? And he said, well, a little bit, but we all know their situation. Yeah, it's the cap. So, zero cap space. Teams in the league that, according to Cap Friendly, have no cap space whatsoever. Arizona, St. Louis, Vegas, Anaheim, Montreal, and Washington. None. This is why it's notable that Mark Bergevin, when asked, are you all in this year? He said, no, we're going to be competitive, but we're not all in. The fact that a team can be at the cap and they still go, we're not really all in this year, shows you just how much general managers are being squeezed by the cap not going up this year. And players as well, right? Now, the notable here is 23-man rosters. Almost none of these teams are at a 23-man roster. Teams with less than $1 million in cap space, the Jets, who have like 27 grand, the Maple Leafs, who don't have enough to sign another player, and the Oilers, who are below $1 million as well. Less than $3 million in cap space, the Canucks, as I said, $1.9 million for them, the Sharks, the Penguins, the Wild, and the Lightning. That's a lot of teams right there, right? So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 that are at the cap. You've got another 3 that have less than $1 million. That is a third of the league that cannot, even if they want Hoffman right now, they can't offer him anything. They absolutely can't. And then you've got another 5 right here. They can't offer him anything either. So when I see fans talking right now about, well, we could just unload money. Where? Then there's teams between 5 and 10 million, and in some cases they do have money, and in some they don't. The Hurricanes, Warren Fogle and Hayden Fleury are their notable restricted free agents, but their roster, it shows 19 out of 23 players. So they don't automatically put prospects on the roster depending on how, top-notch the prospect is and all that. So they have $5.08 million, even if Fogle and Fleury only got, say, $750,000 each. That would only give Carolina $3.5 million for those last 4 players on the roster. So they're out. I'm just going to use Hoffman as an example because that's the big example, right? Hoffman. The Blackhawks, they have Dylan Strome as a restricted free agent. They have $5.23 million in cap space. If Strome took a $1 million contract, they have $4.23 million then to fill out the last 3 roster spots. That's it. The Flyers, they have Philippe Myers. They have $5.68 million in cap space. So again, if Myers as a restricted free agent took $1 million, just using that example, $4.68 million for those last 4 roster spots. Again, according to Cap Friendly, they have 19 out of 23 guys on their roster currently signed to a contract. The Flames. The Flames look good. Or do they? Mangiapane and Shillington are the restricted free agents. They're expected to be signed probably before arbitration. The team has $5.71 million in cap space. They're going to sign those 2 guys, and then they still have 6 more roster spots to fill. So even if those roster spots are filled by guys who make $700,000 a year, that's 6. So that works out to about $4 million. The Flames don't have any cap space right now. That $5.7 million is a complete mirage. The Stars, they have Hintz and Gurianov. They have $6.65 million in cap space. I'm going to say that Hintz takes $2 million. I'm going to say Gurianov takes $2 million. That would leave them with $2.65 million in cap space and 3 roster spots to fill. So the Stars don't have any money either. Again, this is why guys need to be signing 1- and 2-year deals right now, because teams just don't have the money. The Avalanche, they have Jost and Taves, who are out there, and $6.79 million in cap space. But they have 18 out of 23 roster spots filled, so that's 5 guys, again at $700,000 each. That ends up being about $3 million. They have a little under $4 million to sign Jost. Kamenev's on that line as well, and Taves. So that's part of the problem. And the Islanders, of course, famously are trying to offload salary. They're trying to move Boychuk, and they're trying to save on cap space. And I've seen Canuck fans saying, "Well, we can take him." No, we can't. We legit can't. Unless you're going to find $5 million you can get rid of, you absolutely can't. And then if you did take Boychuk and you got rid of $5 million, you absolutely can't pick up anybody else. That's it. That's your lineup for next year. Barzal and Pulock are the restricted free agents we all know about. The team has $8.9 million in cap space. That's not real because Barzal himself could take up that entire $8.9 million, and then you got to sign Pulock. And they only have 20 out of 23 roster spots filled. Again, according to Cap Friendly. 3 guys at a league minimum, that's $2.1 million. That only leaves you $6.8 million for Barzal and Pulock. And that's why the Islanders are in cap hell. This is why I laugh when I see fans saying, "Oh, this GM's stupid, we're all in cap hell." Yeah. Yep, there are 22 teams that I believe right now are kind of capped out. Then you get into the teams that aren't capped out, that have more than $10 million in cap space. Buffalo. They have $13.6 million in cap space. Or do they? Sam Reinhart, Victor Olofsson, Linus Ullmark. Let's just say each of them get $2 million. Let's just say each of them get $2 million. That's $6 million. That leaves them with $7.6 million in cap space. And they'd have 4 roster spots to fill. So, not a horrible cap situation for Buffalo. But, again, they're not going to be going out and trying to sign, a big-name free agent either. The Detroit Red Wings, they have 20 out of 23 roster spots filled. They have $18.7 million in cap space. Mantha and Bertuzzi are going to make their money, but Detroit can afford to pay them their money. The one thing, if you're Yzerman, and with some of these teams down here, you have to be concerned with is, so we have to look forward to next year and beyond and make sure we have enough cap space so we can't just spend willy-nilly now, or you may end up in trouble later. Remember, the cap's $81.5 million this year. It will be $81.5 million again next year. No matter what happens, whether we do or we don't have a season, no matter what, the cap is set in stone that next year it's $81.5 million as well. The Rangers, they have $18.1 million in cap space. According to Cap Friendly, again, they have 4 roster spots empty, but they have to sign Ryan Strome, D'Angelo, Georgiev, and Brendan Lemieux. And so let's just say $1 million for D'Angelo. Strome feels generous, $2 million. Georgiev, $1 million. Lemieux, $800K. That's about $4 million. They're down to $14 million. They need 4 more roster spots filled. And I'm really lowballing how much these guys are going to get. So the Rangers may not want to go out and sign a winger, and I don't know that they need to. They qualified Strome. They've got Lafreniere coming in. I don't think they'd be in the market for a winger. The Ottawa Senators are right below Columbus. Let's do Columbus first. Dubois and Gavrikov are the restricted free agents of note for Columbus. They have 19 out of 23 roster spots filled. They have $13.6 million in cap space. They're okay because they freed up cap space before we entered free agency. I'm not sure what the plan was if they'd signed Hall. So let's just say if they had signed Hall for $7 million. So you sign Hall for $7 million, that takes you down to $6 million for Gavrikov and Dubois combined. And then you still have 4 more roster spots left to fill. That doesn't work. So I can see why Hall ends up in Buffalo, right? So now we'll get to Ottawa. They have Connor Brown and Chris Tierney. Not going to get huge raises, but let's just say $1 million each. While Ottawa, $27.7 million in cap space. They're below the floor. But, again, they only have 16 out of 23 roster spots filled. So when you add those 7 more roster spots in, that is a minimum of $3.5 million you're adding. So if you add that $3.5 million, that takes him down to $24 million. So you give Brown and Tierney about $2 million each. Ottawa's going to get to the floor. And I don't think Ottawa's going to be in the mood to spend big money. The one thing is, Duclair is shopping himself on the market. Duclair's going to find out pretty quick there isn't a huge market right now for a forward. And so and I hear again, I'm coming back to the Canucks because it's what I hear the most of. They're shopping for a top 6 winger. Good luck. Because again, everybody's in the same situation. Boston has $11.5 million in cap space. DeBrusk and Grzelcyk are out there. DeBrusk, there's been rumors they're trying to move him. But again, let's just say Grzelcyk and DeBrusk take a combined $3 million. They won't. But it's $8.5 million then Boston would have left over with 3 more roster spots to fill. Boston is not in a position to spend a bunch of money either. So for all the fans that are screaming and yelling about what their GM's not doing, go to Cap Friendly and I'll tell you why. New Jersey has Jesper Bratt and Mackenzie Blackwood. Blackwood's going to get, let's just say $3 million. Let's say Bratt gets $700K, so $3.7 million. That'd take them down to about $14.5 million in cap space. But, again, Cap Friendly only has 15 guys on their roster out of 23 right now. So that's 8 more players. It's about another $4 million you've got to take off that $18 million. They're not in any kind of trouble, but I don't think they're going to be looking to add big money either. But they could. So if you ask me, well, who could end up signing Hoffman? I would say New Jersey, because they have cap space and they could use a top 6 forward, and there isn't really a big, Armageddon coming with their cap. Eventually Heischer's going to get paid and Hughes is going to get paid, but Heischer's getting paid now, but Hughes will come up and there'll be others, but really New Jersey's not in any kind of trouble as of yet. Luke Cunnin is the only restricted free agent of note for Nashville. They have $12.9 million in cap space. They were in on Hall, but they have 4 roster spots that, according to Cap Friendly, aren't filled, so 19 out of 23. Again, you do the math, 4 times league minimum of $700,000 is $2.8 million. So they have about $10 million minus whatever Cunnin makes. They could maybe make that addition, maybe add Hoffman. But again, it's going to be tight. Mackenzie Weegar is a restricted free agent. Florida, they have $11.5 million in cap space. Remember with Florida, rumor had it that this team wanted to cut costs this year. They wanted to stay about $10 million below the cap. Ta-da! And they only have 18 out of 23 roster spots filled, again, according to Cap Friendly. So league minimum, 5. So $3.5 million. That takes you down to $8 million. My guess is Florida doesn't want to spend any more money. So I'm sure there will be fans who want to armchair GM and say, oh, well, we could trade with Florida. Look, they have cap space. To which a Florida owner says, can we put it on the LTIR and get that insured and not actually pay the money? No, then forget it. So that's where that's at. LA Kings, nothing of major note in terms of restricted free agents. They have $13.6 million in cap space. They have 19 out of 23 roster spots filled. So they have roughly about $11 million left over. But I don't know that LA is going to want to spend a bunch of money either because of the amount of young guns they got coming up. And again, there are a lot of young players that are going to be due for raises next year. And so GMs have to be looking forward to that. This is unprecedented. I can't remember any time where there's been this many teams that already we can look less than about a week into, right, almost a full week now into the free agent time, that we can look and go, yeah, they're all screwed. Yeah, no, they're not going to be adding players. And so a lot of the free agents we see out there and a lot of the armchair GMing that we want to do as fans can't. So we can muse about, oh, my team could use that player. Yep. Do they have cap space? Maybe they don't. And if they don't, that's a problem. Now, I know that some of these teams, there's going to be LTIR that helps them out. I know for the Jets, Brian Little's going to be LTIR. I know Hosa's still on the books, right? So he's going to go on LTIR for the Coyotes. And there are others. Kessler for the Ducks. But the reality is still, there's not a lot of money to go around. And this is the way it is this year. It's going to be this way next year too. And this is why when they announced the CBA extension, I said a lot of these guys should just take 1 or 2 year deals because they're just not going to make their money. The money's not there. And this is why fans were, fantasy booking. Okay, so which compliance buyout are we going to get? Because there's going to be all kinds of players being bought out. It didn't happen, and here we are. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, now that I've said all of this, let's see who ends up finding room to sign somebody. And again, this is why if you're looking to trade a bad contract, it is the worst time possible to try to trade a bad contract. It really is. But hey, we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.